Hi guys, so I thought I'd do a video about vestibular migraines and my experiences with this condition, because I know when I was firstly diagnosed with this, I didn't know anything about it. So I went onto YouTube and found a video of from a girl called Amy. I hope you don't mind me mentioning you. But that was so helpful. But firstly, I'll tell you a bit about when this all started. So in May 2018 of this year, I was heavily pregnant and I had a terrible virus, flu-like symptoms, and I was in bed for about 4 days, heavily congested, full ears, etc. And after this I started to feel better. About 2 weeks after I had the virus, one day I woke up and felt really spaced out. I'd never ever felt this sensation before, so I didn't know what it was. And I just felt really odd and almost like I wasn't really here. So I went to see my midwife and she checked me over, she did my urine, blood pressure. She couldn't really find a reason that I would be feeling like this, but said it's probably just post-viral symptoms and that to get some rest and it will die down. So I went home, and as the week went on I progressively got worse. My symptoms got worse. So I was about 37 weeks pregnant at this stage, and I was really dizzy. Everything almost looked like it was vibrating and moving. I also had really blurred vision as well. I remember going to see a doctor and telling him all of my symptoms, and he basically said that it sounded like labyrinthitis because my ears were so full. And basically there was nothing they could give me because I was pregnant. So at this stage it was a case of you've got to ride it out. He said that he'd never come across someone having labyrinthitis for longer than 6 weeks. So I just have to ride it out. So I went home and I remember just feeling so dizzy, like things were moving. I felt like almost like I was really drunk and just really out of sorts. I then went into hospital to have my cesarean section to deliver my son, and I remember being on the hospital bed and there was a poster in front of my bed on the wall, and I just couldn't read it. Like, I couldn't get a still picture of it and it was completely blurred. I said to my husband, can you read that? And he said, yeah, it's clear as day, but I just couldn't focus on it and I couldn't even really make out what the words were. Now, I have perfect, almost perfect vision. I've never needed glasses. I've never had any issues with my sight. So this was really scary to think, what is going on? Like, this is terrible. So I went and had my cesarean. Unfortunately, everything was fine with my baby. And when we got home, I was obviously recovering from a really major surgery as well, but I also felt still really dizzy. I remember being in the car on the way home from the hospital, and all the cars like coming towards us, it all just felt like everything was in really slow motion, and my brain just couldn't kind of catch up with it. It didn't seem like cars were coming past us at a normal speed. It was just all really slow and distorted. So, as you can imagine, my anxiety was through the roof. I felt so scared, and it's an invisible illness, so no one can see it. You can only describe how you feel. And if you tell people you feel really dizzy and you feel like you're drunk, you either get the reaction of, oh, I'd love to feel drunk all the time, or oh, that sounds terrible, but then they quickly forget, this is 24/7, you're feeling these symptoms. So after that, I tried Stemetil, which really didn't do anything for me. I then went back to the doctors saying, these symptoms, it's been like 3-4 weeks now and they're not getting any better. And he basically said, you need to be more patient with this, it will go. So I gave it a bit more time, but it just wasn't getting better. So then I went back to see another GP who said, I explained all my symptoms, told him how I was feeling, my ears were full, I was feeling spaced out, etc. And he said it was a red herring and he didn't know what this was. So at that point, I was just so scared. And, I'd gone from someone who was happy, positive in life, hardworking, got, as I can do my best, got everything, together. And I'd gone from that person to being like a shell of myself. Someone who then became so anxious. I was having panic attacks every day. And just so depressed, and I couldn't understand why I was feeling like this. Then some family members suggested, maybe this is postnatal depression. So I was that vulnerable at the time and just didn't know what was going on, that I then was like, yeah, maybe it is postnatal depression. But it never just felt right for me, because I know, obviously, if you have postnatal depression, you feel depressed, you feel low. But I've never heard of people saying that they have postnatal depression, but they feel dizzy. So it just didn't fit right with me. As I was so depressed, I went to the doctor, another GP, who was the worst GP ever. Really unhelpful. I said that, I almost felt suicidal at this point. I didn't know what was going on. He didn't really say anything. He prescribed me 10 milligrams of citalopram, which I then went home and started taking. After a week, I still felt really depressed and still really symptomatic. So I then went back. Now, bearing in mind, I've never been on an antidepressant. I don't know how they work. And he was really, not informative of how they work. So I went back saying, I still feel really depressed and I don't know what's going on. And I need, more, I need a higher dose, of which he then put me on 20 milligrams of citalopram. Now, I know, obviously, that antidepressants don't work instantly. They take time to build up into your system. And at this point, so then I was on 20 milligrams of citalopram, and my symptoms just exasperated. Like, I've never done drugs, but I can imagine it felt like I was on a bad trip of a drug. I was so detached. It was unbelievable. I remember sitting outside in the summer and I just felt like I wasn't here at all. I was on this weird drug trip kind of feeling. So I didn't last long on citalopram, and I thought, this drug isn't suiting me, I need to come off. So as I came off the citalopram, I had a week where I was completely drug-free, so I didn't have any medication, I wasn't taking anything. And I must say that I had a few days where I was probably functioning at around 70%, and I was thinking, this is getting better, like everything seems to start feeling better. But unfortunately, I then crashed again, and all my symptoms went up again. I don't know if it's because the citalopram was wearing off out of my system, but it all crashed again, and all the symptoms came back: head pressure, ear pressure, everything, looking really odd, moving. I'd sometimes look at the floor and it looked like the ground was breathing slightly, especially patterns, like pattern rug we've got in our lounge, that would move up like little waves kind of stuff. So I was really freaking out again. So I decided to change GP surgeries altogether, as they were so unhelpful. Depressed, like I literally didn't want to wake up anymore. And I have 2 children who I adore, but it was just, the depression was that intense that I just didn't kind of have a care. I was so detached from everything, my emotions, physically, that I just didn't want to wake up anymore. And I've never been depressed in my life, so this was a real shocker to my family and friends to see how low I'd gone. She then prescribed me sertraline and said it had the least known side effects for an SSRI. So I started on 25 milligrams and then slowly upped it to 50, and I'm currently on 75 milligrams. At this stage, I still didn't know what was going on, so I booked a private appointment to see an ENT. I explained all my symptoms to him, and he basically said, I know what this is. And I was like, what is it? He said, it's all stress. And I thought, I was so deflated. I'm thinking, no, this isn't stress. Like, the only reason I'm stressed is because I'm having these symptoms. But he just said, I can't really help you, it's stress, and sent me home. I remember just feeling so scared and just longing for an answer as to why I've gone from a normal functioning person to this person who's just so detached and having all these, visuals of these illnesses. I've made great friends through this, and Amy, who also has YouTube videos regarding vestibular migraine, she has been amazing. So I just thought, by doing a video, if it makes anyone feel less lonely and they can relate to my symptoms, even if it helps one person, then that's my aim. But I just want you to know that you're not alone in this. There are some weird symptoms with this illness that you can't even describe half of the time. So just know that you're not going mad, and just kind of be adamant with, yourself, your body. If something doesn't feel right, or if someone's giving you a diagnosis that doesn't feel right, then I'd definitely keep pursuing for second or third opinions. I could have easily gone into a downward spiral after the first ENT said this was just stress, but there was just a niggle in me that knew that this wasn't stress and something else was going on. So I'm so thankful, I went for a second opinion. So I just wanted to say that, also to stress that you don't need to have headaches to have this condition. This condition can show up in so many different ways, like neck ache, tingling, ear pain, ear pressure, head pressure, visual symptoms. So you don't necessarily have to have, experienced a physical pain. Also, as I said, I've never had migraines before at all, and a lot of people with this have a history of migraine, but the ENT said that hormones can trigger this off, and that it is common for hormones to start the cycle off and the migraine pattern. So maybe if you've recently had a baby, or you're currently pregnant, or anything hormone-wise that's changed, or maybe stress, then this can all be linked to triggering this illness off. But I hope I've helped someone, at least someone in any way, just to, feel that they're not alone in this. And there are plenty of support networks out there, and I definitely advise researching this condition. I feel like I'm a lot more patient now, and kind of a lot more calmer, because I've educated myself on this illness. So I know that these symptoms are a part of migraine. I know, hopefully, that once I find a medication that stops the cycle or calms my brainstem down, that I'll get there one day. And there's been a lot of people having success on drugs, either whether it's their first drug that they've tried, some have tried numerous drugs and then finally got one that suits them. So everyone is different, and some medications might suit some people and it might not suit others. So it really is trial and error and just patience. I used to think that I would maybe wake up tomorrow and be back to normal and this would be gone. But I'm now realising that it's not a quick fix. It is a slow and steady recovery, but you will get there, and hopefully I will as well. Just got to be patient and keep calm, because anxiety will fuel this illness and make it even worse. So it's just about being as calm as you can and just, going through the moments, and hopefully we will all get there. Thanks for listening.